video. I was about to say film my video. My favorite video I film every month, and that is my January reading up wrap up, and this is also my first wrap up for 2025, and I'm going to tell you guys all the books that I read in January of 2025. Very, very excited for this video because I always get so excited to share my thoughts about all the books that I read. So I read a total of 18 books in January, but I did read 2 rereads. So I did read a total of 16 new books to me and 2 rereads. So, and those were both audiobooks. So, we're going to talk about all the books that I read that were new to me. Now, the first 3 that I have to talk about, I actually don't have in my possession because 2 of them I did return, but it doesn't mean I didn't enjoy them. So we're just going to start with the first book that I actually started as my very last book in 2024, but I finished it in 2025. And I really wanted to read a Hanukkah romance because I read like so many Christmas books during Christmas. I like smashed my Christmas reads and I ended up reading like 7 Christmas books. And I am Jewish, so like my dad is Christian and my mom is Jewish, so like we were raised Jewish, so I wanted to read something like a Hanukkah romance because I've never actually read one before. So the first book that I finished in January was The Matzo Ball by Jean Meltzer. Oh my god, I adored this book. This book was so good. I gave it a 4.25 out of 5 stars, and basically it's about this woman named Rachel, and her love interest is Jacob, and they actually went to like a Jewish camp when they were children, and like this big thing happens when they're at the camp, but Jacob has always secretly liked Rachel. So Jacob is like kind of like a event like party planner, and he throws like this big event like every year called the Matzo Ball because like he wants to throw like this big party like, you know, people do for Christmas, and they throw a bunch of like holiday balls and Christmas parties and stuff like that. So like the Matzo Ball is like the biggest event that like New York has. And what I really liked about this book is that there are mentions of Long Island as well, because Rachel's parents are from Long Island, and you guys know I'm born and raised in Long Island. I still live here. I've lived here my whole life. So that just added to how good this book was. It wasn't quite a 5-star for me though, because there was just like a couple of things that like the way it was written was a little bit weird to me, but other than that, their relationship was the best part of the book. And also a lot of the commentary about, you know, Jewish culture and being a woman, being raised Jewish. She was kind of struggling with her feelings for him because she was unmarried. So it was just really good. And they were like childhood lovers to enemies, and they kind of went back to lovers again. Like it was just so well done, like the romance part of this book. And there was absolutely zero smut in this book, which I actually really enjoyed because there was such a build up to them kissing, but they didn't kiss till like page like 300 or so, which sometimes for me, I get a little annoyed that they don't kiss until like much later in the book. But they did say they did kiss when they were kids because they liked each other. Even though they were only like 12 or 13, and he did say he was like in love with her when they were kids. That was a little bit far-fetched for me because I'm like, they're so young. Like, they don't even really know what love is yet. But I guess 12 or 13 is like pretty much like when you become a man or a woman in Jewish culture because you get bar mitzvah. But anyway, this was just so good. It was so funny. And I really liked it. Also, Rachel struggles with a chronic illness that she's like kind of ashamed of, that she doesn't want to tell him about. And she's trying to get a ticket to the Matzo Ball because she needs to write about it. And secretly, she is a Christmas author. So that's what made this concept sound so funny to me, because she's like obsessed with Christmas, but she's Jewish, and she has like 2 secrets. She can't tell anybody about her chronic illness. Her parents are the only ones that know about it. And she can't tell basically anyone that she loves Christmas, and that she actually writes under a pen name, not under Rachel, because obviously her name is Rachel Rubenstein Goldblatt. That is such a Jewish name. So, oh my God, it was just so much fun. And then like people slowly discover that she is a Christmas author. And it's just so funny the way it's revealed, and the way that this author talks about chronic illness was also a really great perspective to learn about it and read about it some more, because my best friend, when she was alive, she also had this illness. I'm not going to say what it is because I feel like it's kind of spoilery if I do, but it was just such a good book. It was just such a great way to start off the year. Okay, the next book that I read on Kindle, and I just wanted to read a thriller because I think I've told you guys before, I usually feel a bit reading slumpish in the beginning of the month, especially the beginning of this year, because I'm always like overwhelmed on like what I want to read, or what I want to choose to read next. So usually I end up picking either a Kindle read or some type of thriller. So I decided to read this thriller. This was on my Kindle last month, and I wanted to get, well, last month was January, in December of 2024, but I hadn't gotten to it just because I ran out of time. But I ended up reading Alice Feeney's Rock, Paper, Scissors. Now, this is a very popular thriller book, and I wanted to see what the hype was about. And also, I had never read any Alice Feeney before, and I've heard that she's a good thriller author. I think people like her more than Lucy Foley. I still haven't read Lucy Foley yet, but I do want to try out both of their books. Also, I think I told you guys before, I do want to try different thriller authors this year, especially female thriller authors that aren't Frida McFadden, because I've found the last one that I read from her, we'll get into that later, but I just want to explore other female authors in the thriller genre because I think there's some that are even better. So basically, this book is about Mr. and Mrs. Wright, and their names are Adam and Amelia. And I really enjoyed this. I thought this was so good. I think I just gave it a solid 4 stars because but the twist at the end was really, really good. So I really enjoyed this. It felt a little similar to Never Lie though, but I have to figure out which one was actually published first. This was published back in 2021. And basically they both just constantly keep secrets from each other. They're never really honest with each other. And basically their secrets keep on getting revealed throughout the book. And there is quite a lot of buildup as to like what certain secrets they are keeping from each other. But basically they're a married couple, and they both get, oh my God, I already dipped into the wrong color. I'm trying to use the gray, not the blue right now. Get it together, girl. I don't even know what lid shade I want because I feel like these lid shades don't really go with what I'm wearing, but I don't know. We'll see. So basically they both get invited to stay in like this snowed in like remote lodge, and they get like this letter mailed to them. And they, it says that they had won this contest for like a stay at this remote cabin out in like the mountains for like a week or something. So they go to see, to go stay there because obviously like they can stay there for free. But as they, slowly discover that this place is giving them the creeps, and also a lot of like, bad things have happened there. There's been like certain tragedies that have been written about this place that they didn't really research until they got there. And just like the twists in this were actually really good. I was actually creeped out a couple of times. And I haven't been creeped out from a adult thriller novel for quite a while. like I said, ever since Neverlie, I kind of went through a thriller rut. Well, not even a rut, like a slump. Because then after that, I read Middle of the Night, and that book was fucking horrible. So I was trying to see, like, what other thrillers I would like. And I did try, like, multiple other ones after that, but this one actually did creep me out. Listen for the Lie was amazing, but it didn't creep me out that much, but I still gave that book 5 stars over this one. But I do recommend this. I know there's a lot of controversy about Alice Feeney, though, so I read it for free on Kindle, so it didn't really bother me. I actually have Beautiful Ugly from Book of the Month, and I'm excited to read that. So yeah, like, basically you just find out more and more as to what they're actually lying about to each other, and it was interesting to bounce in between, like, the letters that are being written in this book. You try to figure out who they're by. At first you think it's the wife, but then it turns out not to be. So that was really fun, and it kept me intrigued throughout the whole book. Okay, next up, I did read a fantasy book that I had picked up in I think November, so it wasn't that long that I had this book on my shelf, but I really wanted to read it in December, but again, I just ran out of time, so I started doing this video where the Wheel of Names picks the next book that I read, and I ended up reading 6 books out of the 8 books that were on that wheel, so you guys will see that video soon, but I'm going to talk about them in my reading wrap-up, but I'm also going to put them in the vlog. So anyway, the next book that I read was The Tainted Cup by Robert Jackson Bennett. Now, this one was nominated for a bunch of Goodreads awards. Well, I think it was just nominated in the fantasy category. But this book was getting quite a lot of buzz and hype, so I decided that I wanted to read it. And it was my first fantasy book in 2025, and I really, really liked this book a lot. It's about a place called D'Artagnan. And basically it's about Dinios and and Anna. And Anna is basically like a Sherlock type of inspector, and Dinios is basically her assistant. And they have to figure out who is infecting these people that they constantly keep on finding murdered. And it was just such a fun, interesting concept. And I had just such a good time with this book. It was so funny. There was also moments where it got really serious and you wanted to know what happens, but not like too serious that you didn't like get bored. You kept on being intrigued as to who was killing and murdering these people. The only reason why I didn't give it a 5-star is because, like, when you did actually end up finding out who they were, it was a tad bit predictable on who it ended up being. I was like, I kind of suspected it was them anyway, but it was still so fun, like, uncovering every detail. And Dinios and Anna's banter is just freaking hysterical. So I don't really want to give anything else away because I feel like that would be spoilery. I just want to say that I had such a good time with this book, and I'm so excited for the second one to come out in April. I literally have 3 new releases coming out April 1st, and this is one of them. But I wanted to read the first book before the second book came out in April, so I'm glad that I was able to get to it. And again, I had a really great time. So it's basically just like a murder scheme, and it kind of gave me like Sherlock Watson, but also like a bit of Star Wars vibes, because it says, as the 2 close in on a mastermind and uncover a scheme that threatens the safety of the Empire itself, Din realizes he's barely begun to assemble the puzzle that is Anna Dolabra, because there's a lot of multi-layers to Anna that, like, Dinios doesn't really know about, which is kind of similar to, like, Sherlock and Watson. Like, even though Sherlock, like, I love, like, the irony of that is, like, even though Sherlock uncovers murders, you, like, barely know anything about him. And it says, and wonders how long he'll be able to keep his own secrets safe from her piercing intellect. Featuring an unforgettable Holmes and Watson style pairing, a gloriously labyrinthine plot, and a haunting and wholly original fantasy world, The Tainted Cup brilliantly reinvents the classic mystery tale. And I 100% agree with that. I really think they did a great job of nodding to Sherlock without making it like a carbon copy, but he made it his own, like the author, that you could tell it was very heavily inspired by Sherlock, but it was like his own take, and it was just so fun. And I love the way he wrote the characters. They were just so much fun to follow. So I had a great time with it. Okay, so I don't really know what I want to use as my lid shade right now, because I feel like none of these actually really go that well. I'm thinking about just like the light gold shade. I wish they had put like a periwinkle kind of sparkle in this palette, but they didn't, you know? Okay, next up, I read my second romance of the year, and that is You With a View by Jessica Joyce. I'm just going to hold it up really quick and then put it down because I don't want my glitter glue to be on my lid for too long. So this is actually the second book that I read from Jessica Joyce, and now after I had read this one, I had actually read both of her books. So go me. So basically, this book was on my number wheel as well, and I did want to get to this in December as well, but I ran out of time, so I knew I wanted to read this in January as well. And basically, this is about a woman named Noelle and her secret love, Paul. And basically, Noelle loses her grandmother tragically, and she basically discovers that she had like this other life that she didn't really know about when she was alive. She didn't really find out until she passed away. And basically, I think that looks really pretty actually. And basically throughout the book, she slowly uncovers, like, it's a little bit mystery, honestly, but done in like a very romance driven way. And honestly, after reading both of Jessica Joyce's books, I adored both of them. I gave this one, I believe, a 4.25 as well. I didn't love it as much as the X-Files, but I still gave it a 4.25. I liked the X-Files a little bit more. But I love the way that Jessica Joyce writes. I think it's just so fun, and I think it's this book also made me cry as well one or two times because of some of the things that he says to her. It's just so beautiful. But basically, it's like a enemies to lovers kind of deal, because they knew each other previously, I believe, in school, and he was always like a overachiever. And she was, like, always, like, trying to one-up him. And he would do the same thing to her. Like, they were always competing with each other. But they were also, like, friends. But then she also, like, was secretly, like, really liking him. Because even though he annoyed her, she still was attracted to him. But also, like, she's very lost in her life because she had just lost her job. And she has to be forced to encounter... why do I keep on forgetting his name? Theo again, because Theo's grandpa was the one that was involved with his grandma. And basically Noelle makes this TikTok video reaching out to like the world basically and asking people. I could have just used the blue probably, but I feel like the blue was like too blue for this, but maybe it was kind of the same color, but whatever. We already put on the lid shade. But anyway, she puts out a TikTok trying to find her grandfather because, well, it's not her real grandfather. She just didn't know that she was in love, that her grandmother was in love with this man before she met her grandfather, like the one she ended up being with. Like, she never told her about her first love. So, basically, she makes a video reaching out to find this man that was almost going to marry her grandmother. And then she ends up finding him, and his grandson happens to be Theo. So they meet, and they find like a bunch of letters from actually Theo's grandfather gives her like all these letters that they exchanged with each other, like when they were together. And there was like all these like places that they wanted to go, like on their honeymoon, that never ended up happening. They were never able to be together. And Noelle decides that she wants to go on this trip. So she goes on the trip, and then his grandfather wants to go too. And then Theo's like, there's no way I'm letting you go by yourself. I have to go with you. So they all go together, and then that's like the rest of the story is like the road trip that they have. And it was just really, really good. It was really cute. It was just a really well-written romance, and I just really liked it. So I'm just going to go grab my sponge, and then we'll talk about the 5th book. Okay, so next up, I read 2 back-to-back new releases because they both came out on the same day. They both came out on January 7th. So the first one I ended up reading, though, was No Place Left to Hide by Megan Lowley. Now, I was really looking forward to this one. I had actually started the other one that I'm about to talk about in like a minute, because I had started that on the night of January 6th. We all know what happened on that day 3 years ago. Or 4 years ago? Was it 4 years ago? I don't even know. It was bad. It was bad. But anyway, wow, that is way too much primer. Way too much primer, Caitlin. Jesus Christ. I mean, at least it's only like a $4 primer, but I just squirted way too much in my hand. So anyway, I actually picked up this book the day after I started the other one. And I felt like I wanted to read this book over the one I was reading on my Kindle because I knew I was going to finish this book like so quickly. So Megan Lowley is the one that published, her debut novel was That's Not My Name. And the way I found out about that book was Mads Rafferty's channel. And if you don't watch Mads Rafferty, I love her. I love her channel. And she's actually an author, and I'm dying to read her books as well. But anyway, she reads a lot of thriller books. She also reads a lot of fantasy, romantasy. She's more of a romantasy girly. But anyway, she had recommended this book, and she said she read it in like less than 12 hours. And she said that she loved it. And then I ended up reading it in December because I was just so intrigued after she recommended it. And I honestly wanted to try out more YA thrillers, especially this year, because I think I've said this before, but sometimes YA thriller authors are better than adult ones because they actually treat us like we're not stupid sometimes. Like, I feel like in YA thrillers, like, when it's from the teenager's perspective, you're kind of like thinking along with them and like thinking like what the fuck is going on. But with like adult thrillers, sometimes it's like they act like, you know, nothing can be possibly figured out, and like basically it just ends up being like falls flat for me sometimes. But then when I pick up a YA thriller, it's like, wow, I know how a thriller is supposed to be written. Like A Good Girl's Guide to Murder and That's Not My Name were fantastic. So I knew I wanted to pick up No Place Left to Hide. And also I gave That's Not My Name 5 stars. I loved that book. Damn, it was creepy, but it was so freaking good. So I knew I was going to devour this book so quickly because both of her books are under 300 pages. By the way, I just returned this yesterday, but I did really like it. It was wild. This book was wild. And basically, it's about this girl named Brooke and her rivalry between this other girl that goes to her school. It doesn't say her name in the synopsis. And basically, Brooke just strives to be absolutely perfect at pretty much everything that she does. And basically, this community thrives on people going to like the best schools and she has all this pressure about her going to Harvard, and her parents are like district attorneys and like lawyers, and her dad's like a pretty shitty person, but like she constantly like tries to impress him. But basically the events of this pretty much happens in one night, and it flashes back and forth between a past event that happened with another student. Well, actually, no, it's the same student that tragically got murdered. But like pretty much everyone already suspected that, so it's not really spoilery. And everybody thinks that Brooke's the one that did it. And that was kind of similar to the concept in That's Not My Name, where they thought that the male character was the one that murdered his girlfriend. So it was similar in that way, but also I was waiting for this book to kind of hit and like for the build up to, I mean, it did hit at the end. It was actually really good. So that's what makes her books worth reading to me, because the payoff is worth it. I just ended up not loving this one as much as That's Not My Name. This one was just like action, and like it was thrillery because it's like, oh my god, what's gonna happen? But it didn't really creep me out. And for me, in order for me to give 5 stars to a thriller, it either has to have like some kind of like scariness to it, or the story has to be amazing, like Listen for the Lie. But this was still great. So I don't really want to say anything else because I'm going to give it away. But it was really good. It was really entertaining and just really fast-paced and fun. Okay, so next up, this was the other new release that came out on January 7th, and that is Four Ruined Realms by May Corland. Now, I was highly anticipating this book, but I was so disappointed. I don't even remember basically a lot of what occurred in this book, because honestly, it was a friggin' snooze fest reading this. I was so beyond bored reading this. So and this is coming from somebody that really, really loved Five Broken Blades. I adore that book. I thought that book was so fun, action-packed, and she really balanced like the 5 assassin stories really well. But in this book, there was just too much attention on the characters' individual stories that it didn't really lead anywhere. Like, these are 5 assassins, and you're telling me that they're not freaking killing anybody? Like, they're just going on this journey to this temple so they can get, like, these jewels to stop the king that they were supposed to kill in the first book. And that's basically the only thing that happened in this book. And tell me that the only interesting part of this book was the last chapter and the epilogue. And that's what everybody said in the reviews, is that this was pretty boring, even though, you know, the promos of this book were claiming that it was going to be action-packed. And tell me why there was literally no action until like halfway through the book. And the little bits of action that we did get ended up being so underwhelming. So I don't know if this book was rushed, or also this book was a little bit shorter than the first one, and I was like, it's not that much shorter, it should be fine. But no, it, like, literally there was so much filler in this book, and I honestly was just getting so damn bored. But I wanted to read it because it's the second book in the series, and I feel like if I didn't read it, I would be a little confused to read the next one. And then we ended up finding out that this series is only going to be a trilogy, and it's coming out in July. The last book is coming out in July. Even though everybody thought this series was going to be a 5-book series. So I don't know if like the publishers like tried to rush her to write the last book, because again, it's coming out in July. So this book just came out in January, the second one, and now the third one's coming out in July. It's like, that makes me like very nervous as to how this trilogy is going to conclude. But everybody thought it was going to be like a number in the title, you know, counting down from 5 to 1, because it's 5 Broken Blades, and then 4 Ruined Realms, and then 3 Shattered Souls is the third one. and there would be 2 in 1. But everybody was very surprised when I saw on my Instagram that people were like, what? It's only going to be 3 books? So, since I've already read the first 2, I think I am going to read the 3rd book because it's probably going to be available on Kindle Unlimited anyway, so it's not like I have to spend any money on it, but it was just a huge letdown because I really was anticipating this book. I was so excited for it, and it was just terrible. I just really did not like it, so it's disappointing, but it is what it is, so I don't really have any thoughts on the plot, because honestly, I feel like this book had no plot, because all we did was waste time about, like, the feelings of the characters after everything that happened in the first one, and it just took too long to get anywhere. So I don't really want to give too much away, because if you haven't read the first one, I don't want to spoil what happens in the second one if you are going to read it, but it was just pretty disappointing. So anyway, the next book I actually just returned yesterday as well, because I didn't love these books, but they were still really good. But I've been doing more so at Barnes & Noble. If I want to pick up like a book that I really want to read, I'll just go back and exchange 2 books that I've read already, that I don't feel the need that I have to keep them. So the next one that I read was actually a recommendation from my friend on YouTube, Monica Fortner. She had read this book in December, so I was very intrigued to read this in January, and that is A Fire in the Sky by Sophie Jordan. And I really wanted to read another like romantasy, or like my first romantasy of the year actually, and I wanted to read a romantasy before Onyx Storm came out, because I knew once that book came out, I knew I would not want to read any other romantasy besides that. I think the pink would look pretty. Yeah, that looks really pretty. So basically this book is about, what is her name? Tamsin, which I love that name, and the rival prince, but I don't see his name on here. I don't know where his name is. Not Stig. Stig is her best friend. Her only friend, Stig, captain of the guard. It doesn't say his name. That's so weird. I hate when they do that in the synopsis, is that they don't tell you the 2 main characters' names. So anyway, Tamsin is a whipping girl, and basically she always gets punished for her family's misbehavings. And she's always been punished like her whole life. But it's also kind of like a result of like not toxic, Stockholm syndrome with her family, because she thinks that her family loves her, but it turns out like they only show sympathy to her just so she'll get punished, to make them her think that they care about her. So basically she, has always wanted like a better life for herself, but she never thought that she deserved one. So basically the rival prince needs to unite the kingdoms, and like Tamsin's father, because you find out later what he really is to her, is like a terrible king, like he's punishing like his people are starving, typical terrible tyrant kind of king things that he does. Excuse me. And the prince comes to the kingdom and tells him that he wants to wed one of his daughters to like stop like the oppression of the king. Why do I keep on getting black on my fingers? Because he wants to help her people. So he ends up marrying one of them, but I'm not going to tell you who it is. And basically this story takes a turn to be quite interesting and very unique, but again, I can't really say anything other than that dragons are supposed to be extinct in this world. Like, no one's seen a dragon for a while, and Tamsin always feels like she still believes that they're out there. And that's pretty much all I can say. I really enjoyed this. I think I gave this one a 4.5. I really, really enjoyed the audiobook of this. I got it on Everand, and also I read like maybe like 130, 140 pages. This book is so fast and so easy to read because it's only like 330 pages. And also the second book comes out, I think, November of this year. So I will be ready for the second book to be coming out. I didn't even know it was coming out this year until I looked up to see if there was the second book coming anytime soon. And it was awesome that it's coming out later this year. So it's just really good. It's called the Firelight series, and I am definitely looking forward to the second book. And that's it. I'm not really going to say anything else because, again, it's going to be too spoilery. Okay, then the next book that I read, I think you guys know. This is probably one of the best books I've ever read in my entire life. So this book was on the Wheel of Names, and it was picked to be my next read. And I already knew that I was going to love this book because I've heard amazing things about it. But this book absolutely destroyed and shattered my whole soul. But this book is absolutely incredible. And that is Blood Over Bright Haven by M.L. Wang. Oh my God, this book is a masterpiece. I gave this a 6 stars. This book is amazing. There are so many things that I could say about this book. I could go on and on and on and on about it. But basically, the way that M.L. Wang comments about politics, especially in our world today, is unmatched. And the way that society looks at women, and basically, what's her name? Sayana is a female mage, and basically there hasn't been any female mages pretty much ever. Like, mage society is basically run by men. It's always been a male profession, and she becomes a female mage, and her colleague that ends up being her assistant is, what is his name? Tamlin? Is it Tamlin? Or, no. What is his name? Tamil. He is like a poor, like janitor, and he ends up working for her. And I'm just going to leave it at that, because if I say anything else about this, I'm going to spoil it. But just to say, if you were thinking about reading this book, please do. This book has changed my entire life. Like, I cried so much in this book, and the journey that she takes you on with your emotions, it is an emotional roller coaster, but I would say it's devastating, but also it is necessary for you to feel that way if you read this book. Like, just trust me, this book was absolutely a masterpiece. I loved this book so much, and I just could not get over how amazing it was. So, yeah, I'm just going to leave it at that. I'm not going to say anything else. I'm kind of running out of time as well. I have to be done in like 15 minutes. So, I'm going to talk about the last 2 physical books that I have in front of me. It's just such a fantastic book. It says, magic has made the city of Tyron an industrial utopia. But magic has a cost, and the collectors have come calling. An orphan since the age of 4, Sayana has always had more to prove than her fellow students. For 20 years, she has devoted every waking moment to the study of magic, fueled by a mad desire to achieve the impossible, to be the first woman ever admitted to the high magistracy. When she finally claws her way up the ranks to become a high mage, however, she finds that her challenges have just begun. Her new colleagues will stop at Her colleagues will stop at nothing to let her know she is unwelcome, beginning with giving her a janitor instead of a qualified lab assistant. What neither Sayana nor her peers realize is that her taciturn assistant was once more than a janitor before he mopped floors for the mages. Tamil was a nomadic hunter from beyond Tyrion's magical barrier. And just, I won't shut up about this book if I don't stop. So, we got to move on to other books, but just saying this book was absolutely amazing. So after I got emotionally destroyed by reading that book, I literally just stared into space for a good like 10 minutes. I cried my eyes out when it was finished. It was just fucking amazing. I was like, I literally have to read the complete opposite, most fluffy romance book. And this was the one that I really wanted to read because it wasn't on my TBR for January. I was like, I fear if I don't read a mood read, I am going to not want to read anything after Blood Over Bright Haven. So this book was sitting on my TBR cart. I think it's only been like a couple of months. I hadn't picked this up too much earlier last year. I think I picked it up maybe September or October. So it's been like 3 months or something. But this was the one I was most intrigued to read. And also like I wanted to read it in January. I was just like, I just really want to read this book. So is the one I was in the mood for. And that is Ready or Not by Cara Bastone. And I also saw a bunch of YouTubers reading this book recently and everybody was raving about it. So I'm like, I really want to read it. It says love shows up when you least expect it. You guys, I freaking adored this book. I gave this a 5 stars. I loved this book so much. The way that Cara Bastone does the friends to lovers trope in this book is perfection. Oh my god, I loved this book so much. So basically, this is about a accidental pregnancy, and before people get upset that that's what it's about, honestly, the accidental pregnancy trope does not bother me in the slightest. I'd rather read about that trope than insta-love, to be honest, because insta-love is the one that I don't really like at all. So basically, her name is Eve, and her best friend's name is, it's just so funny. So funny. Oh my god, why is it taking me forever to find his name? Oh my god. Her best friend's name is Willa, which is her female best friend. Shep. So basically, Shep has been in her life like forever, and he's living with Willa. Why can't I find my damn eyeliner? I swear to God. And I have to leave in like 15 minutes. It's taking like freaking forever, dude. Okay, it's this one. This one is brown, for fuck's sake. That's not the right one either. Oh my god. Jesus. Okay, finally, we found black eyeliner. And she basically goes to like this bar one night and hooks up with this guy named Derek, which is so funny because she ended up dating this guy Derek for like a couple of years before that. And then she broke up with him, and then she just made like this decision one night that she was drunk from, I forget what it was. I don't know if like it was her friend's wedding or like her bachelorette party or something, but basically she stumbles into a bar and she ends up hooking up with this guy named Derek, and she ends up getting pregnant. And just the way that Cara Bastone writes about pregnancy for women is just so amazing, but also like the internal thoughts that go on in Eve's head are just fucking hysterical. I thought this book was so funny. And Shep has always been like her best friend, but he's always like helped her with things. And he's always been there for her. But like Eve doesn't really want to express like her feelings for him because she doesn't want to like ruin what they have, obviously. But also like the way that they are with each other before they confess their feelings is that they're always like being affectionate towards each other, and they're always like questioning why they're like this. And it's like, do like friends really do this with each other? And it's just like, but they still hadn't confessed like how they feel about each other yet. And it's just so good. And I don't really want to give anything else away. And Derek, you know, ends up being the father, and Derek is really struggling as to whether or not he wants to be involved in the kid's life. So basically it shows a lot of the struggle that Eve goes through to get Derek to be there. Like, he will, like, check in every once in a while. But he was also off from his girlfriend, and then they were back on, like, literally a week later. After he had hooked up with Eve. And when she found out about it, we were like, oh my God, did he, like, cheat on her? And he's like, no, we were just on, like, on a break, kind of like similar to, like, Friends. So he's, like, constantly struggling about, like, his feelings for his girlfriend, because his girlfriend is, like, so upset that he got this woman pregnant. And that's basically where I'm gonna leave it. But it was just so good. I adored this book. It was definitely my favorite romance that I read in January, and I'm so glad that I picked it up, and it's so worth the hype. Okay, and then I did finish my first reread, which was an audiobook, but I'm gonna talk about that later when I'm able to talk about all three of them together, because I pretty much finished them all around the same time. So I'm just going to talk about this last new book that I read to me before I leave, because I pretty much have to leave after this because I have to get, like, my blush on and stuff. So the last book that I read, well, this wasn't the last book that I read in the month, but this was another book that I read in that Wheel of Names Picks My Next Read, and that is the second book in the Thursday Murder Club series, which is Richard Osman's The Man Who Died Twice. Now, this one I didn't really love as much as I did the first one. Let me just grab my blush and highlighter because I don't have any right now. It's gonna be okay, so basically the Thursday Murder Club is back at it again. I really, really loved the first book, so I was excited to pick up the second book, and I think I've said this before, but these books aren't, like, essential for me to read, like, back to back to back. It's not, like, a huge deal. I just pick them up when I'm in the mood for them because they're, like, cozy mysteries. But this one didn't really hit as much as the first one did. I gave it a 3.75 because it was just a fun, silly, goofy time. And I'm glad that I did read it after Blood Over Bright Haven. I was actually going to read it right after Blood Over Bright Haven, but I was like, no, I'm in the mood to read Ready or Not. And if I didn't read Ready or Not, I didn't want to fall into, like, some kind of slump. So basically it's about a woman named Elizabeth, and I'm just going to read the synopsis because honestly I feel like it's easier just so if I read that. It says, Elizabeth has received a letter from an old colleague, a man with whom she has a long history. He's made a big mistake and he needs her help. His story involves stolen diamonds, a violent mobster, and a very real threat to his life. As bodies start piling up, Elizabeth enlists Joyce, Ibrahim, and Ron in the hunt for a ruthless murderer. And if they find the diamonds too, well, wouldn't that be a bonus? But this time they are up against an enemy who wouldn't bat an eyelid at knocking off four septuagenarians. Can the Thursday Murder Club find the killer and the diamonds before the killer finds them? And that's basically what it was about. Again, I don't really want to give that much away because it is the second book in a series, but it is really fun to read Richard Osman's, like, style of writing. It was basically the same as the first one, where I just wish that the Thursday Murder Club aspect was, like, a little bit more prominent in this one. Because I feel like with the first one, there was a lot of mysteries that you uncovered about multiple characters, when with this one, it was only, like, one or two. And I felt like with the first one, it was a lot more multi-layered on the stories of the other characters than this one. But it was still really fun. So that's basically it. That's all I have to say. And also, it did involve one of the characters, like, writing a letter to basically the main, like, person who got murdered, and it was, like, basically the same format as, like, the first one, where it switches from first person POV with the letters, and then when it goes back to, like, the different chapters about the other, what's going on currently, it's from other characters' perspectives, and it's in third person, so it's just a really fun time. So I have to go, so I'm going to talk about the last few books when I get home. We don't have that many more left. My goal was to talk about 10 books before I left, and I think I did. Let me just see really quick. 1, 2, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Yep, 10 books exactly. All right, so I will talk to you guys later. We still have 8 more books, but 2 of them are rereads, so it's not like I really have to talk about them like crazy. We're just going to talk about the newest one that I read. So we'll talk about Fourth Wing to Onyx Storm when I get back. So bye. Hey guys, so I am back and I wanted to talk about the rest of the books that I read in the month of January. So I'm just going to start with the 2 rereads that I listened to, and that was obviously Fourth Wing and Iron Flame. So I ended up doing a reread of both of these, and I listened to both of the audiobooks. You guys already know what I think of both of these. They're both 5 stars. I absolutely love Fourth Wing, and I really just wanted to refresh my memory. And I had bought these back when I bought the audiobooks. Obviously, I bought these books when they came out. These are so damn heavy, so I'm not gonna hold these. But I had bought the audiobooks when Amazon was having like their big Black Friday sale or during in like November, and the audiobooks were only like $4 or $5 each. So that was like a really good deal, especially for books that I already owned physically. So absolutely loved it. And then of course I wanted to reread them so I could refresh my memory for when I was able to read Onyx Storm by Rebecca Yarros. Oh my god. You guys, absolutely loved this. It was so good. I don't really want to give anything away, but I'm probably just going to read the synopsis for you guys because honestly, I really could not describe what this book is about pretty much without giving it away. I think it started off really strong though, and I really love the way that she just picks up right where she leaves off with the last book. And but towards the middle it was getting a little confusing and a bit slow, but like pretty much everybody said the same thing, is that after the 50% mark it just is so fast paced and like so many things are happening then that you're just on the edge of your seat waiting to see like who's gonna live and who's gonna die. And then that ending, you guys, I literally was just like staring into space after I read this. So it was of course 5 stars. I read probably like 150-ish pages of the physical book, and then I also ended up finding this insane deal for the audiobook and the Kindle version. I think the Kindle version though was $13.99, but the audiobook was only $7.50 for me. And I saw it on Amazon and it said get the audiobook for $7.47, because like sometimes like when you scroll down, like not where, so like let me show you guys really quick on my phone just so you guys can get an idea, because sometimes like I don't know. Amazon's a little shady. Obviously, it's fucking Amazon. So, like, it's annoying that we have to have such a connection to Amazon and everything. Because, you know, they have a monopoly pretty much in everything. But anyway, so if you, like, took, like, the regular copy of Onyx Storm and you, like, scroll down, not to this, because it'll show you that the audiobook is freaking $25. Go down and check, like, it's not going to show me deals right now because I already own this in the Kindle version and the audio version. But sometimes on the bottom they show you like the deal with Audible, but I thought, so like always scroll down, don't just like click and buy the audiobook for freaking $25. Like I would just, because if I would have done that, it would have been $25 for me, and it only ended up being $7.50 for the audiobook. So I was like, fuck yeah. And I was so happy that I was able to get the audiobook because I really wanted to listen to it. Because I just wanted this, I did not want to put this down. Like, and I also like picked this up and then I just sat at the library for like a good 2 hours because I didn't want any interruptions at home. But then it turned out my mom was like barely even home that day, but nothing was interrupting my reading plans of reading this book. And I absolutely loved it. But after I finished it, you guys, that ending just like slapped me in the face, like And I just could not touch another book for a few hours. And I was like, I was in a serious book hangover. But then I ended up picking up another book after that because I ended up starting this book before Onyx Storm, and then I finished it after because obviously I was going to stop reading that book to finish this one, and I absolutely loved it. So this one says, power rises humming through me with insistent demand. Oh, wait, hold on. That's not the synopsis. Riders don't run, we fight. After nearly 18 months at Basgiath War College, Violet Sorrengail knows there's no more time for lessons. No more time for uncertainty, because the battle has truly begun, and with enemies closing in from outside their walls and within their ranks, it's impossible to know who to trust. Now Violet must journey beyond the failing Arterian wards to seek allies from unfamiliar lands to stand with Navari. The trip will test every bit of her wit, luck, and strength, but she will do anything to save what she loves, her dragons, her family, her home, and him. Even if it means to keep a secret so big it could destroy everything. They need an army, they need power, they need magic, and they need the one thing only Violet can find, the truth. But a storm is coming, and not everyone can survive its wrath. So good. I think that this set up so much for the next book, but at the same time, like, nobody knows, like, when the fourth book is going to be coming. There are rumors that the fourth book is not even going to be coming out until 2027. I honestly believe that she's not going to make us wait that long. I would shoot for probably earliest fall 2026, because this obviously literally just came out. But I would probably say maybe winter of 2026. I don't think it's going to be 2027 unless she does a January 2027 release. But I don't think she's going to make us wait like almost 2 years for the next Fourth Wing book. Because if the fifth book comes out in freaking 2029, that would be insane. Like, are we all going to be alive that long? So, but it was just so good. I absolutely love this series. And I've given all 3 books of 5 stars. So absolutely love these. This is heavy. It's like 1,500 pages that I'm holding right now, but absolutely love these books so much. I don't care what people say. They're just great entertainment, and they're just so much fun. Okay, so next up, I read, so basically this week was like a whole bunch of continuing series for me, because I had read The Man Who Died Twice, and then I read Onyx Storm, and then, I went into this book finally, and this was the last book that I read. Well, actually, yeah, this was the last book that I read in that Wheel of Names Picks What I Read video, and that is Jennifer Lynn Barnes' Games Untold. This is like the short story collection for the Inheritance Games series. And if you guys know, I binged the Inheritance Games series back in April of 2024. I had honestly thought, I think I said this before, and like, when I was hesitant to pick up this book, that I wasn't sure if I aged out of it. But honestly, this covers some pretty heavy topics at certain points, but I do think that I am probably not going to continue any other books that come out in this series, but I did want to read this, and I'm glad that I own it. But honestly, there was one story in this that honestly probably could have just been its own novella, because it was like almost 200 pages. And I'm like, girl, this is not a short story collection. This is like almost like a full ass book. Like, some novellas are like 200 pages. So, but that was like the most interesting backstory, because it gave like some backstory on the Hawthorne brothers and Avery and Tobias, which is their grandfather. And it did give us some content about like certain events that happen in the Inheritance Games and the rest of the books in that series. And I liked that some of these events were occurring in tandem with some of the Inheritance Games books, and it was like from characters' completely different perspective, but also they had completely different experiences. Like, they weren't in the same place, and that's what I said, I found like very repetitive about Magnolia Parks and Daisy Hates. The fact that Daisy Hates was just the same fucking dialogue, but from a different character's perspective. that just got boring to me. But again, with like Boys of Tommen and this, Boys of Tommen obviously does it like a million times better, where like it's from a different character's perspective, but also what they were going through at the exact same time in a completely different place and situation. So that's what was happening similar in this. But besides the story about Tobias and his first love, which was like the really long story in this, honestly, the other stories didn't really add too much to the Inheritance games, to be honest. So it was good, but I also felt like I was reading this book for a while because I was in, like I said, I had such a book hangover after Onyx Storm that I only read like 60 or 70 more pages of this that day that I finished Onyx Storm. And then I think it took me like 2 more days to finish it after that. But it was still, they're still very fast paced, very readable books, but I gave it a 3.75. Like, I'm not like dying over it. So those were my continuations of series. And then I finally picked up this book, and I've actually already now read 2 books on my 25 and 2025 list. And this was one of them. I put this on my end of year TBR for 2024 as well, like my 10 before the end. But I hadn't gotten to it then. But I'm like, you know what? I think I'm finally ready to read this book. And I'm like, I've just been dying to read it. Everybody has been raving about it. And also, I kind of knew that this was going to be a 5-star. And that is Kristen Hanna's The Nightingale. You guys, I finally read this book. I've only owned it for like a few months though. I've only owned it since like September. But I felt like January was like the perfect time to finally read this book. And you guys, this book is phenomenal. Oh my God, I totally understand why people rave about this book. The way that Kristen Hanna writes, the way that she makes you care about her characters so much that you're literally feel like you're reading like a nonfiction historical story. But this book just made me cry. Obviously, it made me cry multiple times but it wasn't like Blood Over Bright Haven where it was like completely devastating, but it was like that expected kind of heartbreak because the subject matter is so upsetting in this book because it takes place during German-occupied France, which is the Nazis occupying France during World War II. And it's this incredible story of 2 sisters that get constantly pushed to their limits and divided. And they get completely separated at one point, and basically follows both of their stories and their experiences in World War II in France. And that's all I really want to say because there's some incredibly upsetting things that occur in this book, but I expected that going in already. So, like, it wasn't as devastating, but absolutely 100% 5 stars. The way that she tells a story, and literally this is one of the only books I've ever gotten out my pen to, like, highlight and underline and just, you know, was so amazed by, like, some of the way that she writes in this book and some of the quotes, but just, like, it's so fast-paced and it's so readable, and I don't know how she does that. Like, literally, if I only had an hour to read this in one day, I would get through, like, 50 or 60 pages already. And this is a chonker. It's a 564-page book, and I got through this in 3 days. And I literally didn't feel overwhelmed reading this whatsoever because it's so damn readable. But it was incredible. I loved this so much. If you haven't read Kristen Hanna, I think everybody recommends that you start with The Nightingale because it's chef's kiss. It's an amazing book. Okay, then next up, I did read one of my last new releases for January of 2025. And that was Frida McFadden's The Crash. I did read this on my Kindle. This book was just awful. This was like my least favorite Frida McFadden book. I gave this a 2 stars. And the only reason why I gave this a 2-star because I honestly wanted to give it, like, honestly, I think I'm going to give it a 1.75. But I rounded it up to a 2 because it was close to 2 stars, but only because it wasn't a 1 star like middle of the night, because that book was terrible and I felt like I was reading like a 700-page book. At least with Freida McFadden's books, they're so readable and they're so easy to binge. But I thought I was going to binge this book in a day, and it took me, it's still like only a day on Goodreads. Oh my God, I didn't realize she was reading this book already. She is reading it. That's funny. My friend Tiffany's reading The Crash as well. Because she told me, just based on my review, she just wanted to read it to see if it was actually really bad. Because she was like, oh my God, I only want to read this because you gave it a bad review. Which is so funny. But basically it's about, I like totally forgot what this book is about because like it was so poorly written. Like, dude, can we give Freida McFadden a break? Because like, I said this in my reading vlog of new releases, but I feel like they just care about quantity over quality from Freida at this point. That they're just want to make their money off of her because her books end up being bestsellers. That no matter what, no matter if they're not good or actually good. So basically it's about this woman named Tegan, and she's pregnant, and something catastrophic happens to her with her pregnancy. On how she gets pregnant. Basically, she gets raped. And I just have so many problems with the way that she wrote about rape in this book, the way that she wrote about pregnant women in this book, the way that she wrote about women in general. It's just like, it was like almost really insulting to the point where I was like, girl, this is like a little bit too much at this point, that it just like really was turning me off. But the only reason why I finished it was because it was for the new release video. But I was thinking about DNFing it so many times, so I think I might be done with new releases from Freida McFadden at this point because this book was so bad. But I know that she can write good books because I've rated like a lot of her books like 4 or 5 stars. But like the most recent ones that I read, I actually preferred The Boyfriend over this one. Because The Boyfriend, at least, I could laugh at the absurdity. Like, yes, she always ends up making the female main characters pretty dumb. But it's, like, so outrageous that it's laughable and entertaining. And that's what I like about her books. But, like, this one was just, like, so repetitive. There was no thriller aspect to this whatsoever until maybe like the last couple of pages. But honestly, it felt like I was just reading Never Lie Again, like with the twist that happened in that book. But that's still my favorite book from her but I feel like her plots are just getting so similar at this point. So basically this girl named Tegan drives up in a blizzard to go to her brother's house because her brother said, you can come here because, you know, she was kind of strapped for money at that point. But he literally told her to go drive in a fucking snowstorm while she's pregnant. And then, like, she doesn't come to the conclusion that she shouldn't have done it until, like, she crashes her car. And then she can't get out. So this dude, like, picks her up and brings them to her house. And basically imprisons her in their basement for, like, a few days. And, like, the nurse that takes care of her, like, just pissed me off, too. And the fact that Tegan kept on aspiring to be, like, this nurse that literally captured you and wants your baby. It's, like, so predictable that I don't even care if I'm, like, spoiling it. Because it's just, like, I'm just saving you the trouble from reading this book. Because it really was not good at all. And also, like, I'm pretty sure it was similar to, like, it was like a combination of Never Lie and The Surrogate Mother together, because I think The Surrogate Mother by her has a pretty similar plot where the mom wants that baby, and I haven't even read that book. Correct me if I'm wrong, though. But it also seemed like it was similar to Then She Was Gone by Lisa Jewell. But not like as really sad. And I love how this says a gut-wrenching story of motherhood, survival, and twisted expectations. And I just didn't feel any of that. I didn't feel like it was gut-wrenching because Tegan kept on admiring the nurse that captured her to get her baby. And she was like, I want to be a nurse like her someday. I'm like, bitch, what? I'm like, girl, you're not this dumb. Like, even though people were saying, like, oh, she didn't make the female main character as dumb this time, I'm like, honestly, I feel like she was kind of worse than the female main character and the boyfriend. And that's all I'm going to say, because if I don't stop, I'm not going to shut up about this book. Okay, then I just have 2 more books and then we're done. So then I did finish my audiobook for the month, and that was Andy Weir's Project Hail Mary. So I finally finished my first full-length sci-fi book. I did pick up the physical copy, though, like a couple of months ago, but then people said that you should listen to this book, and honestly, I'm glad that I did. But I didn't actually listen to the official audiobook because I didn't have any Audible credits, and people said that the voice for this book is amazing. So maybe, like, in the future, I might, like, re-listen to it with the actual audiobook narrator, but I just found it for free on YouTube with, like, an AI voice, and this was so good. I really, really loved this. It was so funny. Basically, it's about this man named Ryland, and he is sent on this suicide mission pretty much to save the planet. And it takes place between, like, the past and the present, and, like, what he's going through in his solitude on his spaceship. And that's basically all I can tell you, because if I tell you anything else, it's going to kind of spoil it. But it was just so good. The banter between him and the computer, or, like, just comments that he makes in his head, and some of the flashbacks was just really funny, but also it made you feel like very sad for this character at one point, but he had to, like, accept his fate when he didn't want to. But basically it's like sacrificing one for the good of the many was pretty much the overall message in this book, and it was just so good. I really loved this. I think I gave it a 4.5 out of 5 stars just because, again, it didn't give me the 5-star feeling, but I understand why everybody loves this book. It really is fantastic, and I'm so excited for the movie adaptation because I've seen The Martian from Andy Weir, and also Andy Weir is a author that doesn't really read at all. That doesn't really write that many books, but when he does, they are amazing. So I really loved this. The only reason why I didn't give it a 4.5, I gave it a 4.5 of 5 stars because, like, there was a lot of like scientific and mathematical jargon in, like, the middle of the book that got a little bit too confusing, but besides that was really, really good. I really enjoyed it. Okay, and then the last book that I officially finished in January was another new release, and that is Hannah Bonham Young's Out of the Woods. And this one came out on the same day as The Crash by Frida McFadden, but I hadn't picked up this book yet, so I wanted to get, like, a decent amount into The Crash before I got this. And I was going to wait to get this at Barnes & Noble, but it would have been, like, freaking $19. So I just pre-ordered it on Amazon so I could pick it up from my Whole Foods on release day, and it was there by, like, 3 o'clock on release day. So I just started reading it after I finished The Crash, and I loved this. This was so good. I adore her writing. Some of her quotes and her banter is just freaking hysterical, but she has a way of making you laugh your ass off. Like, I'm literally putting this book down, like, laughing out loud because it's so fucking funny. And also, like, super emotional, and also very, I don't know why I keep on forgetting, like, the adjectives that I want to use. Beautiful, emotional, and hilarious all at the same time. She just has such a talent. And this was the interconnected sequel to Out on a Limb, but it wasn't really like a sequel about Winnie and why can't I remember his name, like literally ever. Winnie's boyfriend, but it doesn't really matter. So I think it's Gus. So it's following Sarah and Caleb, and Sarah is Winnie's best friend, and so is Caleb, and they are high school sweethearts. And basically they had to get married when they were really young. I'm not going to say why. And they've just been struggling with their marriage for a little while at this point as they've gotten older. So they decide to go on this like retreat, like out of the woods, you know, in the mountains, to like see if they can, you know, fix their marriage and like work on, you know, their communication and all of that. And it was just so good. I gave this a 4.5 as well. It wasn't quite a 5-star like Out of the Woods, because honestly the last 50 pages, it was a little bit too dramatic for me. I understand why it took a turn for that. Maybe that was directly inspired from her real life, because a lot of this was based on Hannah and her husband's marriage, which was beautifully written. I can't believe that her husband, you know, let her tell her story in this way. It was beautifully written. So I just kind of wish it went in a little bit of a different direction. Like I wish there was an epilogue on like where they were in their marriage after that. But besides that, I thought it was fantastic, and I just really love her writing. So I definitely want to read Next of Kin and Next to You sooner rather than later. So now I've read 2 of her books, but Out on a Limb is still my favorite so far. And basically she wrote this for the fans, but I feel like this was such a better like sequel than Nothing Like the Movies by Lynn Painter. I really did not like that book at all. I think that this was so much better, and I'm so glad that she made this like a labor of love and not something that was like, you could tell that this was really like a personal book to her. And like I feel like that helps romance authors so much when it's based on their own personal experience to make it such a good read. So that is it. Those are all the books that I read in the month of January, and this is concluding my first reading wrap-up of the whole year. I cannot believe we're in February already. I actually ended up finishing 2 books today. I finished Beartown by Frederick Bachman, and I loved it. And I also finished The Favorites by Lane Fargo, which I also really liked as well. So you guys will see all my thoughts about those in my February reading wrap-up, but I literally just finished both of them today, and they were the first 2 books that I finished in February, so that was nice. So yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Please like and subscribe. Follow me on my Instagram at TBW819 and check out my Poshmark at the same handle. Let me know if you've read any of these books, or if you want to. Sorry if it's dark, but I just didn't feel like turning on the other light. And I hope you guys have a great day or night or whatever it may be. I just hope you're doing well. I'm not doing that great, but you know, books are my escape. So yeah. So I hope you guys have a great night, and bye. Keep reading. Bye.